Iran just forced the United States to completely rewrite its war plan, and what they came up with is something most military analysts never saw coming. Here's the situation. Saudi Arabia said no, Qatar said no. The U.S. cannot use its own bases in the Middle East to launch a strike on Iran. 30,000 troops, 40 military installations, years of strategic positioning, all of it suddenly off the table. So, what does the most powerful military in human history do when its entire regional war plan collapses overnight? It goes to Plan B. And Plan B is terrifying in its scale. If you find this kind of deep military intelligence interesting, hit subscribe right now, because this is exactly what we cover every single week. Now, here's what Plan B actually looks like. The United States begins quietly repositioning dozens of KC-135 Stratotanker aircraft, flying gas stations, out of American soil and UK bases, pushing them into Greece and Bulgaria. Why does this matter? Because without these tankers, not a single strike jet reaches Iran and comes back alive. The distances involved from European bases are so massive that F-35s and F-16 would run dry before they ever crossed Iranian airspace. These tankers are not support assets. They are the entire operation. If they don't fly, the war doesn't happen. But the tankers alone cannot win this. So the U.S. Navy activates its floating cities. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, currently sitting near Gibraltar, begins pushing east at full speed toward the eastern Mediterranean. This ship launches 4 aircraft per minute using an electromagnetic catapult system so advanced it reduces physical stress on the aircraft frame compared to older steam systems, meaning jets can fly more missions before breaking down. The carrier doesn't just bring firepower, it brings an entire self-contained war ecosystem, aircraft, missiles, radar, command, and thousands of sailors, all moving toward Iran at once. And here's where it gets genuinely alarming. The U.S. had already quietly removed 60% of its missile defense systems from Qatar. That's not a rumor. That's a documented repositioning. To replace that gap, the military now needs to airlift 4 to 6 Patriot missile batteries plus components for a THAAD battery across 3 continents, over 300 heavy transport flights. But here is the detail that almost nobody is talking about. The U.S. is deliberately pulling aging Patriot missiles from Cold War stockpiles in Germany and Japan to intercept Iran's Shahed suicide drones. Why use old missiles? Because commanders are hoarding the brand-new PAC-3 interceptors, the ones that can actually kill hypersonic missiles, for what they call the big one. They are saving the best ammunition for the worst-case scenario. That tells you everything about how seriously they are taking the Iranian ballistic missile threat. Now the attack itself begins, and it does not start with pilots. It starts with machines. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the Persian Gulf and northern Arabian Sea open their vertical launch cells simultaneously. Dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles erupt from the decks, flying low, hugging the terrain, invisible to radar, programmed to arrive at their targets at the exact same moment. Their job is surgical. They are targeting Iran's S-300 and S-400 radar installations and command bunkers, blinding the Iranian air defense network before a single manned aircraft enters the fight. While those Tomahawks are still in the air, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers are already deep inside Iranian airspace. These aircraft took off from Missouri. Nobody saw them leave. Nobody will see them arrive. But Iran is not sitting still. Iran's response strategy has been quietly studied by every serious defense analyst on the planet, and it is built around one brutal idea. You don't have to defeat the U.S. military, you just have to make the cost unbearable. Tactic 1 is the swarm. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps deploys hundreds of small, fast attack boats simultaneously from every coastal direction, flooding U.S. destroyers with more targets than their close-in weapon systems can physically process. It's not about winning a fair fight. It's about overwhelming the math. Tactic 2 is the silent strangler, mining the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has thousands of naval mines, including smart mines that identify ships by their acoustic signatures. Seeding the world's most critical oil choke point doesn't just threaten U.S. warships. It immediately triggers a global economic crisis. Oil prices spike. Allies panic. The political pressure on Washington to stop the war becomes almost impossible to resist. Tactic 3 turns the Persian Gulf itself into a kill zone. Mobile ballistic missile launchers hidden in Iran's mountainous coastal terrain fire and immediately relocate before U.S. aircraft can respond. There is no fixed target to destroy. The threat is constantly moving. Tactic 4 is the ambush beneath the surface. Iran's Ghadir-class diesel-electric submarines are small, shallow-water hunters perfectly designed for the Persian Gulf. They sit silent on the seafloor and wait. A single successful torpedo strike on a U.S. carrier doesn't need to sink it. It just needs to disable the flight deck. That single event cuts U.S. air power in the region in half. Tactic 5 is drone saturation. Iran has invested years in becoming a drone superpower, specifically because drones are cheap and U.S. defense systems are expensive. Launching waves of loitering munitions against radar dishes and carrier flight decks is not about destroying ships. It is about blinding them and buying time for the ballistic missiles already in flight. Tactic 6 is the headquarters strike. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, the largest in the Middle East, is pre-targeted at the static U.S. logistics hubs in Bahrain and Qatar. Destroy the fuel, destroy the ammunition, destroy the command centers. A U.S. Navy that cannot resupply cannot stay in the fight, no matter how advanced its ships are. So can the U.S. still win if Iran executes even half of these tactics? Yes, and here's why. Even without a single carrier operational, the U.S. Air Force Global Strike Command can place any of its 3 strategic bombers over any target on Earth within 24 hours. The B-2 Spirit goes first, the only aircraft ever built capable of flying from the continental United States, penetrating the most advanced air defense systems on Earth undetected and dropping bunker-buster bombs on hardened underground nuclear facilities. There are only 19 of them in existence. Every single one is a strategic national asset. After the B-2 Carves open the air defense network, the B-1B Lancer comes in fast and low with the largest payload of any U.S. bomber, cruise missiles, satellite-guided bombs, clearing everything in its path. And finally, the B-52 Stratofortress, older than most of its pilots, launches long-range cruise missiles from hundreds of miles away, completely outside the reach of whatever Iranian air defenses survived the first 2 waves. This is not a war plan built for speed. It is a war plan built to be unstoppable. The real question is not whether the U.S. military can execute this. It clearly can. The real question is whether any political leader on either side is willing to accept what comes after. Because a conflict that begins with tomahawks in the Persian Gulf and ends with B-2s over Tehran does not stay contained. It doesn't stay regional, and both sides know it. That is the calculation happening right now, behind closed doors, in capitals you are not hearing about on the news. If this gives you a clearer picture of what's actually at stake, share this video with someone who needs to understand it. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because when the next move happens, you'll want to already be here.